to join in the fun? You are. Hi everyone, welcome back to Novel Idea. I'm going to do my August wrap up. I'm going to do it as quick as possible, but I have a lot of books and I don't remember, I should have looked, but I don't remember exactly which books I've already wrapped up other than the books that I read that Tiffany assigned for me. We're going to get into it and I'm going to go lowest to or least liked to most liked. August was a pretty good month. Okay, so the first one that I want to tell you about is called Kisses and Croissants. I read this because I needed a book for the camp space on Tiffany's bingo board, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. Just totally not my kind of book. It's teenagers in total competition with one another in ballet camp in Paris, and of course there's got to be a boy involved, and of course there's got to be some sort of competition there as well. So it just wasn't my kind of story. So Kisses and Croissants, I cannot say Sophie's last name. Jouhanneau? I don't know. Then I read The Pearl by Hughes. This is another one that I just kind of read on a whim. I saw it at the library, picked it up, just thought it's little, it has a really cute cover, and it was based on a poem, I think. And so those are the things that I knew about it going in. Then I found out that it was nominated for the Booker and was longlisted for the Booker. And so I thought, oh, well, it's probably not going to be my cup of tea. It really wasn't that bad. The problem for me was that I really enjoyed the part that felt very fairy tale like. She was looking back on her life. There was kind of this otherworldliness about her childhood, and I loved that part of the book. And then we kind of melded into a part where she was you know, just an angsty teenager, didn't like her dad, didn't like where they were living, was still probably dealing with some grief from some things, but just all of the acting out and the way that she was choosing to grow up, that kind of lost me, because we were still in the same sort of language as we were when it was memories and fairy tales and everything, but it no longer fit the story to me. And so it was fine. It was nothing, it wasn't anything horrible. It was just that it lost me about halfway through, and it's a short book. Then I read Small Acts of Amazing Courage, and this is by Gloria Whelan. And this was also fine. It was good. It was about a girl who was English growing up in India, and her parents didn't send her away to English boarding school, because when they did that for her brother, her older brother, he died while he was there, and they wanted to keep her at home. And so they keep her at home until something happens where her father feels like she really needs an English upbringing, and they send her to her aunts. And it's this beautiful story of her being secure enough in who she is and in who she knows her parents to be, that she can really spread some wings, make some decisions for herself, stand up for what she believes is right, change the lives of some of the people around her, and thus possibly changing many other lives in the process. So it was also very, very short, and I thought that it was well done. It's good. It's just that it wasn't long enough. It wasn't enough of a background and enough of a in-depth kind of look at all of it for me to like it more than I did. I read The World of Curiosities. This is by Louise Penny. It's brand new. It's another one that I saw at the library, and I thought, okay, sure. New release, nobody's checked it out yet. I'll do it. It's an Inspector Gamache, which some of them I get along with really well. All right, that's enough. And some of them I don't. And this one was okay. To be honest, I don't remember much about it. It was a mystery. It was solved. Inspector Gamache was alive at the end. That's what I can tell you. Okay, you need to come lie down. I do remember his wife was in danger at one point also, and I think that it was I haven't read all of them, and I haven't read them in order. And I do believe that it was like an arch nemesis that had come back, that he was trying to put back in jail, basically capture before anything else bad happened. Oh, we're getting up on Mom's lap. Okay, we'll put that down there then. All right, the next two that I read were two cozy mysteries. They were by Juliet Blackwell, and one was called If Walls Could Talk, and the other one was called Deadbolt. All I can tell you about them is that I needed something that was just quick and easy, and I enjoyed both of them, and that they are about a woman who is like a contractor. She fixes up old houses. She took over for her dad, and she is good at what she does and happens to get involved in a few mysteries that she has to solve. So, liked them both, thought they were fine. I then read Mrs. Harris Goes to New York. This was by Paul Gallico. Same character as Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, only she's coming to New York this time. In this story, she and her best friend are coming to be maids and housekeepers for a well-to-do New York family. And before they come, they find that there is a boy whose father has moved to America, and his mother has died, and the foster situation that he is in England is just not a great one. And so they make a pact, she and her best friend, Mrs. Harris and her best friend, make a pact that they are going to rescue this boy and reconnect him with his father. Unbeknownst to the well-to-do family that they are going to be working for. And of course, in typical Mrs. Harris fashion, there are all kinds of things that go wrong and all kinds of funny situations, and yet it's still poignant and it is still lovely, and it was a very sweet story and I enjoyed it. All right, then I read Cry, the Beloved Country. This is by Alan Paton, and I read this with Tiffany from Beautiful Minutia. And we didn't know what exactly it was going to be about when we were going into it. We knew it was a well-respected classic book, and it was by an author from South Africa. It was a very odd writing style, and so it was difficult to get into initially. And then once we kind of got our feet underneath us and felt like we understood the pacing and all of that, we would be hit with this beautiful prose all of a sudden. His conversations that he wrote were very disjointed, and just, we never really felt like we were reading a native English speaker. He was trying, I'm sure, to write as if a native English speaker was listening to non-native English speaking men, but it was just hard to really get into the story. And so we loved the moments when he was describing the countryside or was talking about something that was happening and wasn't having a conversation with someone. So I told Tiffany that I absolutely loved the very last chapter, maybe even the last 2 chapters of this book. And if the entire book would have been written like those last 2 chapters, it would have been an all-time favorite probably, because he can write, but he cannot write conversation. And that really brought the book down. This is about a pastor whose family has 90% of his family, maybe 95% of his family, has moved away from the tiny village that he and all of them are from, and they have moved to the big city of Johannesburg. And Johannesburg seems to gobble people up and not allow them to continue to be the kind of people that they were raised to be. And that includes his son. So he gets a message from another pastor who has found his sister and her child, and he asks for our main guy to come and get her because she's in a bad situation. And in the process of doing that, he finds her and her son, and he also finds his son and his son's pregnant girlfriend, and a bunch of stuff goes down. We'll just put it that way. And it's a very, what would have been a very sad, very, very poignant kind of story, but it really isn't poignant until the very last chapter. And that last chapter made the whole book for me. And it's why it's ranking as high as it is. Otherwise, it might not have ranked quite so highly. The next one that I read was a graphic novel, and it was for the graphic novel space on the bingo board. And it was called Wonder, and it's by an artist named Beatrice Blue. And it is basically about her history and the way that she developed her art style and the way that she brings light and mystique to what she creates. And it was wonderful. Wonder was wonderful. So I highly recommend it. If you like learning about different types of art and different types of artists, and you like to know kind of processes and then just to see a history of where they've come from to where they are now, I would highly recommend it, besides the fact that her artwork truly is wondrous. I then read another book that was longlisted for the Booker Prize, and it's called This Other Eden, and it is by Paul Harding. And I thought this was such a good story. Just a couple that were released from or running away from being slaves and wanting to live their own lives. And they basically set up house and life on an island off the coast of Maine. And they began to have family that then grew up and had families and all of this. And one of the things that they did in order to survive was plant apple trees. Poppy, we're not doing that right now. Mom's not down here to play. I know you want me to. So anyway, it was a hard story. It was well done. I thought it was an amazingly well told story. The reason why it's not at the top of my list is simply because it didn't give me enough of the initial story. I wanted more of the story of the original founding of the island, and not just what happened to the generations after. It needs to be told. It is just not the story that I wanted. So This Other Eden by Paul Harding, really enjoyed it. Well, enjoy is not quite the right word. Anyway, then I read Labyrinth's Heart, which is book 3 in The Rook and the Rose. And it was not also what I was expecting, because from the first 2 books, we don't get a lot of the, I'll just say this, there was a lot of hopping in and out of bed in this book, which just did not happen in the first 2. And there was a lot of that kind of thing that just kind of brought the story down for me. Like, that's not what the story was about. But for some reason, the authors felt the need to take it there. And so for me, it wasn't as good of an ending as it could have been. Everything else about the book I enjoyed. Everything else about it I thought was excellent. But just those parts that were completely unnecessary to me. So Labyrinth's Heart finished a series. Lonely Castle in the Mirror, and I am going to try to say her last name. Tsujimura. And it was translated by Philip Gabriel. I thought this was really, really excellent. It's a story about some kids who are being bullied, and they don't know each other. They have no idea that the others exist. They think pretty much that they're alone in this bullying situation. All of these kids are about the same age, around the same age, and we don't do that. No more. And so one day, they stop going to school, and one day they end up with a mirror somewhere around them, glowing, and they are able to go into the mirror, and they are given an assignment by the Wolf Queen to figure out a mystery and find a key and make a wish before a certain date. And on that date, they will no longer have the opportunity to come back through the mirror or to make a wish or any of that. And I didn't really enjoy the book until about 3/4 of the way through. I thought that it was fine, but about 3/4 of the way through, the story took a little bit of a turn. It was all of a sudden about more than just being a kid who is being bullied and is escaping. It became a story about so much more than that. And I identify with kids bullied because that's the way that I was in school. I was not a well-liked kid. I was not an accepted kid. I was not a popular kid. And so I really identified in many ways with these children, but that still was not enough for me to really like this story and let my roots go down into the story until that 3/4 mark. And then it became amazing and I really loved it. The Saturdays. I read this for Tiffany's Patreon group. So the Saturdays was chosen by Tiffany's daughter because it was her birthday month in October, and we wanted her to be in on our live discussion of the book. So she chose the book that we were reading, and this is Elizabeth Enright's book 1 of the Melody Family Quartet. And I love this book. I've read it before. It's a reread for me. I don't even think it's the first reread. It's probably the 3rd or 4th. I don't know. My kids read these books when they were growing up. I'm pretty sure that I don't think I was very old when I read The Saturdays for the first time. So I read them when I was young too. But anyway, The Saturdays is about a group of 4 kids, all in one family, 4 siblings who don't have enough allowance money for adventures. And so what they do is they say, if we pool our money together, then each of us 1 weekend a month will have enough to go on an adventure. And so that's what they do. And it's just a funny, fun, very, very reminiscent of childhood kind of story. Elizabeth Enright does an amazing job of capturing what it is like to be a kid. And I loved it. I loved it. I don't think there was anybody in our group that didn't love it. They all thought it was wonderful. Unoffendable by Brant Hansen is the next book. Again, a reread. I have read it before, but it has been several years. I want to say like maybe 8 years since I read it the first time. And he has a way of making something very palatable that is not otherwise palatable. It's just easy to swallow the pill that Brant puts in front of you. I listened to this on audio this time, and Brant reads it, and he has a podcast and he has a radio show and he has some other things. So I'm used to listening to him, and so this felt very much like him just talking on the podcast. I thought it was absolutely wonderful, and it's about exactly what the title is. And then finally, the last 2 I read for Legendary Readathon that was hosted by Christy and Rainey and Naomi and Victoria. So Rainy Day Reads, Naomi's Bookshelf, A Musical Bookworm, and Christy Lewis from Dostoevsky in Space. And that was Mythos by Stephen Fry and Till We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis. And I say them together because the whole purpose of Legendary Readathon was to read as close to the original story as you could get, and then read a retelling. And so I chose Cupid and Psyche, and part of the reason for that is because I am wanting to read a new translation of Ovid's Metamorphosis by Stephanie McCarter. I think that's right. And so I wanted to kind of reinform myself about what Cupid and Psyche's original story was. One of the reasons why I love C.S. Lewis's Till We Have Faces is because it is not told from Psyche's perspective, nor is it told from Cupid's perspective. It is told from Psyche's older sister, or one of her older sister's perspectives, and it is wonderful. It is so wonderful. I really enjoy the second half of that book as well. I like the first half, just being introduced to Psyche and her sisters and her family life and all of that. I love it. But the second half, when we get to see her sister really coming into some understanding of some things and finding some better perspective, that is when I really loved the book. Stephen Fry's Mythos was fabulous. I love the way that he tells us about Greek and Roman mythology. He has this way of saying things that you just get it. You understand. It's not hard to hold on to after you have read it. So I really enjoyed both of them. Oh, I should tell you that I read Till We Have Faces with Anna Marie, and she said, oh, I totally want to read that with you. Would it be okay? And I'm so glad that she asked and that we got to do this, because it made it so much more than just a reread for me. I really got to think about things, and she brought some stuff up. She told me about another book that I need to read that was being basically written while C.S. Lewis was writing Till We Have Faces. And I am so excited to get that. I have it on hold at the library. As soon as it comes in, I'm going to read it. And so it was just nice to bounce things off of one another and to say, this is what I'm getting from it. This is what I'm getting from it. Oh, I can see how you would see this. Yeah, I'm not quite getting it that way. I'm getting it this way, you know, and just be able to do that. It was lovely. It was lovely. So those are all of the books besides the 5 that I read for Tiffany. Yeah, so those are all of them from August. And I would love to know if you have read any of these, what you think about them. Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? I would love to know. Just talk to me down in the comments. And thank you so much for spending time with me, for stopping by, for hanging out. And I will see you again very soon. Like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to.